It started as an ordinary night in a quiet suburban neighborhood. But within minutes, flashing blue lights painted the walls of a home belonging to a woman who had spent her life protecting others. 2 officers stood outside her door, shouting commands, accusing her of breaking into her own house. Her heart pounded, not from guilt, but from disbelief. She had survived armed raids, hostage standoffs, and undercover missions. Yet nothing prepared her for this. They didn't recognize her face, her authority, or her badge. But they would. Watch until the end. Wait a second, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Agent Monica Harris was one of the FBI's top field operatives, a name whispered with both respect and caution across state lines. A decade of dismantling trafficking networks and uncovering corruption had earned her commendations, though her successes often came quietly, in classified reports no one would ever see. At home, she was simply Monica, the neighbor who gardened on weekends, waved to kids, and rarely drew attention. That night, she returned from a 14-hour operation, exhausted but relieved. Her small brick home in Arlington had always felt like her safe place, a space untouched by the ugliness of the world she worked in. But as she set down her keys and turned on the lights, a beam of light cut through her blinds. The sound of car doors slamming followed. Voices shouted outside. Confusion crept in first, then realization. This time, the danger wasn't coming from criminals. It was coming from those sworn to protect. Through the window, she saw 2 uniformed officers approaching, guns drawn. Their eyes were sharp, suspicious. The radio crackled with her address. Someone had reported a suspicious black woman forcing entry. Her pulse quickened. She raised her hands, stepping slowly toward the door, announcing herself loudly, calmly, years of tactical training guiding her words. But the shouts didn't stop. Within seconds, her door flew open. She was pulled out barefoot, wrists locked in cold steel, knees pressed into the ground. The neighbors peeked from windows, the familiar gaze of silent judgment watching everything but saying nothing. One officer demanded identification, the other scanned the house as if it were a crime scene. Her badge was inside, so was her firearm, locked and secured. Her mind raced through options. Should she reveal who she was? Or wait and see how far this would go? Every second felt longer than the last. She had seen innocent men and women humiliated, bruised, or worse, all for looking like her. And now she was living it. A 3rd patrol car arrived. Another officer stepped out, hand hovering near his holster, ready to escalate what was already out of control. Monica spoke with measured calm, but they didn't hear her. They only saw skin, not authority. The irony burned. She had trained men like these, briefed officers like them on de-escalation and bias. Yet here she was, an unarmed woman in her own home, being treated as a suspect. It was the sound of a name over the radio that brought everything to a halt. Dispatch confirms, Agent Monica Harris, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Silence fell over the street. The officer who had cuffed her froze mid-motion, realization flooding his face. The tension cracked, but the humiliation remained. Monica stood, bruised and shaking, as they stumbled over apologies she'd heard 100 times before on the job, but never directed at her. She walked past them, retrieved her credentials, and held them up beneath the flashing lights. The gold badge caught the glow, a symbol of power that, for a moment, had meant nothing. The youngest officer lowered his gaze, whispering something about a mistake. Monica didn't respond. The damage was already done. Some mistakes, she knew, couldn't be undone. Inside, she sat quietly on her couch, wrists still marked from the cuffs. Her phone buzzed with missed calls, her team wondering if she'd made it home safely. How could she explain that the threat she faced wasn't from the criminals she chased, but from the prejudice that lived in the very institutions meant to uphold justice. By morning, the department issued a formal apology, words typed neatly in an email, followed by a short statement to review protocols. However, Monica had already seen those reviews. They always ended the same way. Nothing changed. In the days that followed, she returned to work, but something inside her had shifted. The woman who once believed in the system now saw its cracks more clearly than ever. She began training recruits again, but this time, her lectures carried a different tone, one that demanded empathy over authority, understanding over assumption. When asked why she didn't press charges, she said, "Because I know what happens when power meets ignorance. My job isn't to destroy. It's to rebuild what's broken." Her story spread quietly online, a poignant reminder of how even the most powerful aren't immune to prejudice. And maybe that's the truth that hurts the most. No badge, no title. No achievement can shield you from what the world refuses to see. So the question remains, how many more times will we read this story before something finally changes? Where are you watching from, and what does justice look like where you live? Take care.